Hello, in this correlation tutorial demonstration we'll be looking at interval ratio by interval ratio data. Our question is, what is the relationship between Australianness, which is measured on an interval 1 to 10 scale from low to high, what's the relationship between Australianness and degree of femininity or masculinity, which is measured on a 5-point scale from 1 being very feminine, 2 fairly, 3 androgynous, 4 fairly masculine, and 5 very masculine. So let's have a look at our descriptive statistics. Analyze descriptive stats, frequencies, and our variables of interest are Australianness B12 and femininity masculinity B13. We've seen Australianness before in the previous exercise. For femininity masculinity it appears to be bimodal, and we'll come back to that later because there's a cohort of females and a cohort of males underlying this data. Let's go ahead and get a scatter plot, and we're trying to use femininity masculinity to predict Australianness. Double click on our scatter plot to go into the chart editor, and we can add a line of best fit. Now we're going to go and get the correlation, analyze, correlate, bivariate, and we'll see that the correlation is going to be positive, but will it be significant? 0.12 is a very small correlation, and it's non-significant. There's only about 1% shared variance if we were to square that 0.12. However, something more might be going on in the data. Let's consider what happens when we look at the sample by male and female. If we add genders here into set markers by and rerun the scatter plot, double click on the scatter plot, add our line of best fit, but also add separate lines of best fit for males and females. And as we can see, the relationship for males is positive, whilst the relationship for females is negative between gender role and Australianness. Now what we're going to do is split the data file by gender so that we get separate correlations for males and females. By turning on split file, every analysis we do from now on will report separately for males and females. And I'm now going to go back and rerun this correlation command, and this indicates that I have a relatively moderately large correlation for males between Australianness and sex role, 0.5, and for females I have a small negative relationship. If I was to square this, 0.5 squared is about 0.25, and if I square 0.23, that's going to be about 0.05. So actually there's 25% shared variance between Australianness and males, and only about 5% shared variance between Australianness and females. So this is an example of heterogeneous samples. There are two different correlations for the two underlying samples, and it's more appropriate to report both rather than average them or combine them together and have a small non-significant correlation.